Today's a special show. I really needed it today to listen to somebody who's on the front lines. Amazing, the people we don't know about, that he's been ministering and is ministering now to millions of children worldwide, because this guy is a former conspiracy to overthrow the government of Mexico, international drug trafficking, weapons runner. God got a hold of this man and gave him a heart for children, and he's running the Chaplains organization that is massively transforming America and other countries right now. And that's the show today. And as I was thinking about it, I said, well, what he reminds me of is he's kind of like the detox to the national problem in our school system. And then I said to my staff, don't we have any kind of a product that we work with? I was thinking of Peter McCullough, the doctor, who's been doing a study of COVID heart conditions. As a matter of fact, he has a study called Risk Stratification for Future Cardiac Arrest After the Jab. In other words, there's these studies that are going on now, people that have been injured by spike protein. And you know what that is by now. My audience understands that. But I said, does he have anything to deal with it? And yes, he does. He's got the ultimate spike detox. And, you know, Dr. McCullough is the real deal. I want you to just look it up, check it out, because I want to get it available to you. My staff just got it for me today. LanceWallnau.com/wellness. Get 10% off the ultimate spike detox, crafted with 100% natural ingredients designed to help your body clear from that harmful protein. And if you're still struggling with that fog and conditions after COVID, this is the way. Let's get rid of it. Get rid of that spike protein. All right. And today, our special guest will blow your mind, Rocky Malloy. Let's watch this.
Avast ye mateys. What's up, everybody? It's Carl here for the Lance Wallnau Show. Today we have a very special treat for you. It is not just an author or a reformer. It is a former pirate who actually is now a chaplain and championing spiritual activation in our schools. So please give him a very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Rocky Malloy.
Rocky J. Malloy. Rocky, I was surprised at that introduction there. Is it true that you were a pirate of some sort in Mexico and got arrested? What's the story here?
Yes, sir. I was sentenced to life in prison for conspiracy to overthrow the government, international drug smuggling, and some other minor charges.
Like that you just peppered those in, just some minor ones, you know.
So, but your background was what, with military, or how did you develop this unique skill set?
I was a merchant marine officer, rebel by trade.
All right, so you're a rebel by trade. Give me a timeline. When was all this going on?
This happened in the mid-'80s.
All right, so I take it at that point in time you weren't a Christian doing your drug trade, right?
No, I was full-blown trying to serve the Lord. It's a weird story. I was on the bridge of my ship, and I saw some really bad things happen to people. So I went to ask them how I could help them. I'm thinking they say, food and blankets like on TV. These people said, we wanted some guns. They were mad. And so I said, okay, I've got some weapons and explosives on my ship, but if you're going to go full blown, you're going to have a lot of weapons. So I started negotiating for weapons in the harbor and turned into a civil war.
What was going on with the government that made you sympathetic with the overthrow of the government? Describe to me what was happening.
They pushed a small town off a cliff. Church, everything. It was too far away for me to hear what was happening, but I could see. And these people were throwing dirt up in the air, and they were screaming, and this row of bulldozers were preceded by a group of men with automatic weapons, and the people just stood by and watched their whole town go over the cliff.
Well, literally. Okay, so you were there to help deliver them. Evidently, it didn't work. You got arrested. You went to prison in Mexico, or where?
This was in Oaxaca, Mexico, very south. It's not a border state. It's closer to Guatemala. And yeah, I was arrested and I spent the night in a Mexican police station. The next day, they took us to the federal penitentiary. I was, completely done, no trial, no nothing. And they hung 3 people that went to jail with me. And I received a life sentence. And then later that afternoon, they came to get me out, and I spent the 3rd day in a county jail, so 72 hours from arrest to pardon.
How did that happen? How did that transpire? What were the order of operations that led to your freedom?
Well, you know what, man? I was totally guilty. So I have no idea. I mean, they hung 3 people that went to jail with me. So what happened was the arresting officer came to get me out. And I wasn't sure because of some things, I thought they were just going to execute me somewhere else because I was an American citizen. But he took me to a part of the prison where the administration was, and there was a cyclone fence that separated that part from general population. There was one other American in there. First time I saw him, they were electrocuting him. Anyway, so he puts 2 fingers through the fence, shaking hands with me because whatever happens, we're never going to see each other again. And over my shoulder is an audible voice that goes, "I've set you free, now go do my work." But this guy's looking straight into nothing and hears that voice and he goes, "What was that?" And I look back and there's nothing there. So my lightning fast mind, I think I was just authorized by God to be a mercenary. So I ended up even getting in more trouble later, but yeah, I was supernaturally released, and it took me a while to figure it out. But yeah, man, I got involved in another revolution in Bolivia with Pancho Villa, grants, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I figured out I was a revolutionary for the Lord, and it was time to bring God back.
I'm so stunned by this. I really should do better show prep before I sit down. I mean, I met you with your chaplain ministry, and I thought, well, this is an interesting background. So, all right. And underscores the point for all the audience out there. It's really important you have a pastor or somebody that helps confirm what God's telling you, so you get the right interpretation on your prophetic word there. All right, so you met your wife. Now, she was a model or something? It's another chapter that is kind of unusual. What's going on there? And you guys were doing child rescue together?
Yeah, well, you know what? I show up in the Sandinista War. I was on the Honduran side of the conflict, right on the border of Nicaragua. I was a merchant marine officer, and she was a Dutch nurse. The communists had killed everybody with education, including doctors, nurses, and midwives. And she was there training midwives because childbirth was a big, really, a lot of children died and mothers died. And so, yeah, we were engaged in 2 weeks, and we got married shortly thereafter. Her parents, who were pastors, didn't want anything to do with me with my background. So she was Dutch, so her dad made the church vote if we could get married or not, and we won by 1 vote, so we got married.
Wow, so encouraging everyone to get out and vote.
Yeah.
All right, so how did you get involved with the children? So child trafficking, where was that going on?
Lance, you know what? Sometimes it's hard for me to talk about it because it's so emotional. Is that because of my training, there was a MASH unit, just like TV, mobile army surgical hospital. And the Contra soldiers the combatants were the first one to get service, but the civilians would also get care. And that night, there had been a heavy artillery barrage in a nearby village. So there was lots of civilians out there, some horrifically burned because the communist Jews incendiary artillery on civilians. So my job that day was triage. The people that were closest to death were closer to the tent and less critical further away. And this little boy, about probably 12 years old, he comes up and kind of tugs on me. And I looked down at him. He didn't have a shirt on. He had been horribly burned in the past on his back, but it had healed. He asked me for a can of milk. there was a lot going on right then, but I didn't have any milk. So I sent a soldier into the tent. The soldier comes out with a little can of condensed milk, and I didn't think anything else about it. But that little kid kept coming back about every 2 weeks for months, asking for milk. It turned out, it took me a long time to get this out, but all the dads were dead early in the war. But what happened is that night, he grabbed up his baby sister and running out of the village, and his mother took almost a direct hit. So they're orphans, and they're living in the jungle because his little baby sister is too afraid to come into a clearing. Well, the war started to die back, and so I needed to change positions. I was working with a group of Contras. So the Contras that I worked with kind of lined up. Their tradition was in formation, and these guys weren't given to emotions, but there were some emotions there because we were never going to see each other again. I got really close to them. This kid steps into the back with his baby sister. I'd never seen her before. She had a little dirty white dress on. She was waving enthusiastically. I was in this little plane getting ready to reposition. And it really got to me because I saw stuff happening to kids, and I thought it was the UN. These kids their organs, Lance. When you talk to an 8-year-old little boy with a scar down his back and they took his kidney, and he tells you he feels like a cow with a tag on. The next time they need a kidney, he'll be sacrificed. Or a 15-year-old girl who they took her spinal fluid, now she's crippled. Oh, God. This is happening all around me. And I was just naive. I had no idea. So when I got into reposition, a place that had been more engulfed in the war, for the first time ever, I started talking to these little kids, and they had no idea they were in war. They thought God was killing them with fire. They're asking me, they didn't know what war was. I'm trying to explain to them adults kill each other. They didn't understand. When are their dads coming home? Their mothers, their brothers, their sisters, horrific burns and stuff. But yeah, Lance, it got, I was working with the soldiers. The idea of working with kids didn't really hit me till that moment. And then in order to protect children, that's how this whole thing got started.
Once again, where was this happening? Was this, you said Nicaragua?
This was right on the border of Nicaragua. What happened was the insurgents, the Contras, they were Mosquito Indians. They were ferocious warriors. They would move into Nicaragua from positions in Honduras. And I was working with a group of probably about 20. And some miles behind us was U.S. They were armored divisions. They were ready to invade Nicaragua. If you remember those days, they never invaded. But we were right in the front of the combat. And I mean, it was small arms fire and artillery on a daily basis.
All right. So this somehow leads you into this compassion and this interest in children, which is a shocking story for those of us that are hearing this from somebody who's actually there watching. How did this end up getting into what you do now? Is there a bridge there between there and the Chaplains program and the school focus you've got?
Well, we ended up moving to Bolivia, my wife and I, because, yes, and she was still is, supermodel, man. Anyway, so we moved to Bolivia because it had reported a high per capita number of street children. Street children are not orphans necessarily. They're children that can't go home. So these children were suffering the same kind of victimization as these children we saw in the war. Organ harvesting, slavery, just abuse. And we've discovered that if they were in school, they were less likely to become a victim.
Okay, hold it right there. We got to take a brief break because I got stations I work with. But I want to hold you over, if you don't mind. I want to get the other half of the story. We're talking to Rocky Malloy, the original Rocky J. Malloy, and you are going to share with us how you got involved with a program that will help protect the children of the people listening. And that's why I want them to hold over. We'll be right back.
Clean, safe water. It's the foundation of a healthy home, but hidden contaminants could be putting your family at risk. That's why there's Sentry H2O, the smarter way to protect what matters most. It filters out what doesn't belong and restores what your body needs. Pure, mineral-rich water that tastes as fresh as it is clean. Because your family deserves more than just clean. They deserve water that supports their health. Go to lancewallnau.com/water and use code LANCE to save 10% on your water wellness system. That's lancewallnau.com/water, code LANCE.
Well, we're back with Rocky J. Malloy, who's may end up having a movie done about his unusual life. And what's interesting is it's kicking into a whole new gear right now. Rocky, you came from watching exploited and murdered kids, dealing with communism, like you say, with a face like very few people understand that its ruthlessness and its demonic nature. Somehow you make it to the United States and end up doing something with schools and a very innovative approach towards protecting kids and a chaplains program. Talk to us about that connection.
Well, currently we have about 42,000 chaplains serving in over 36,000 schools, and there were some very profound results from that. For instance, no suicide of a young person with a chaplain for 2 years or more. That was very important to me personally. Victimization of children dramatically reduced because they were safely in school. Kids love hanging around Jesus. So just general violence at home and at school, children started making better grades. When God was present in school, there was a ministry of presence. And so the state of Texas, a state board of education member saw that, and they said, we want that for the state of Texas. So in 2023, Governor Abbott signed into law the Texas School Chaplain Act, which funded school chaplains. That was followed by Louisiana and Florida in 2024. And this year, Missouri passed it. 29 other states have filed legislation. I've been privileged to be an subject matter expert witness in that. And we're moving forward in other states for God to come back to school as a chaplain.
So I'm curious, sir, what exactly does the chaplain element contain? What are you doing with the students? What does your curriculum look like?
Well, the unique thing about a chaplain is that they're federally protected and privileged. That's why a chaplain can open up Congress for prayer and not a pastor, missionary, or anybody else. That same chaplain has these same unique rights. It's called sacred speech. So teachers and coaches and other people are restricted in that area, but not a chaplain. So the strategy is it started off how to protect children, but it ended up protecting the whole community from the violence that happens in school. A chaplain is one of the only people on a school campus that can intercede. It's called left of bank, BANG, when an action is taken to prevent harm. The school system is set up for right of bank. After something terrible happens, they move into action, but they know who the shooters are, who the problem makers are, but they can't do anything. Chaplain is uniquely privileged and protected to intercede.
So what you're describing is kids that are troubled, that don't have, listen, they don't know anything about God. They're coming from a family, maybe it's a busted up family, maybe dad's, maybe the father isn't there, or maybe there's all kinds of domestic violence and problems. And the kid is carrying with him the baggage of depression or suicide or addiction. And where do they go? Peer group, social media. The chaplain, I imagine, becomes emblematic of, well, there's some guy here that supposedly knows God. I imagine that, like on the military bases, the casual conversations that come, like, what's the agenda I was reading for a chaplain in the military? Well, they're not overtly proselytizing. They're just available. And when you're available, you have conversations and how you doing and how you doing. And kids that are curious about what you believe and why do you believe it, and they start to open up. I imagine there's a lot of stories like that in your profession. Am I right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. So the chaplain can go left of Bang
with a G.
with a G, bang. So I imagine that in some cases they're not only chaplains that are serving God, but if they come with a history like you, where they actually are, former military, they might even be licensed to carry a weapon and actually be like a sheriff in the school system to protect the kids. Is that too far-fetched? Or I'm in Texas, so I imagine that could be done.
Well, in the state of Texas, a chaplain could be a guardian or a marshal. The difference is a marshal is actually deputized as law enforcement, but only on that campus. And because of their contact with children, they can't carry a weapon, but they can have access to a weapon via a bio lockbox.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. Okay, so if something's going down on the campus in the school, that chaplain, he might be the one quick guy to resort to what's necessary to neutralize that. And in today's world, with the violence, it's on our news cycle. I'm not sure that that's not a comfort for me to know that there's a God-fearing somebody that has access to protection on the campus. How many chaplains are available right now, and how many openings are there?
Well, any school in the United States can have a chaplain, paid or volunteer. The reason for this legislation is for the states to set aside funding for those chaplains. So there's thousands of potential chaplain jobs. And as we bring more awareness, and we're very thankful for you for helping us do this, more and more school districts are opening up. Like there's dozens of school districts in California and Pennsylvania that said, we want chaplains in our school districts that haven't passed legislation.
Well, I'm curious about this, and then I'll throw it open to my son over there. But I imagine you must get some rabid separation of church and state pushback on having a chaplain in the school. I mean, it's weird that America's got to that point that people would not want a Christian known as a Christian there to help kids that are struggling. But what's your answer to that when people say, well, I think it'd be separated from the school?
First of all, those arguments are totally in vain. There's over 10,000 chaplains paid by either the federal or state governments right now. So the idea somehow they're illegal in schools, ridiculous. So the Constitution also says it shall not restrict the free exercise thereof. And recently there's been more defense over the free exercise than there's been over the separation.
So you're operating in a legal, constitutionally supported capacity, and there's how many schools? 300,000 schools in the United States. I'm sure we don't have 300,000 pastors because we don't have that many. We don't have, chaplains. Because we don't even have that many pastors. I was just thinking. So, what's the training for this? I only got 4 minutes left, but how do you? So someone comes and says, "Man, I'm all for that," or maybe they have a military background, they want to serve God. That what kind of credentialing process is involved?
Well, they can go to our website and we can line it all up. We give them a free course to understand everything. But if they have enough experience in ministry, then we train them with 80 hours of training. And then additionally, there's FBI training about active shooter, personality threat assessment, Red Cross training about emergency first aid. And it's proven very effective. As I mentioned earlier, we've got 42,000 chaplains working right now in 23 countries.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 23 countries. So you're working internationally now with this?
Yes, sir. Every Spanish-speaking country in the world has our chaplains, in Eastern Europe is talking to us, and multiple countries. They see the value of having a God witness in school, and they want it. This experiment that God's dead resulted in horrific consequences. People are tired of that. They want God back.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, how do you go about finding these specific schools that you can then put your chaplains in? Do they reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? Is there a glossary or an appendix or something like this?
Well, it kind of goes both ways. There are 130,000 school campuses in the United States. And so we're, with every resource we have, we're reaching out to them, letting them know that chaplains are available. And there's like First Liberty, Pacific Justice Institute, and other legal firms that are hearing from these school districts. And so they recommend us to bring chaplains to school to help solve some of the very serious social problems that they have.
Yeah. I'm also curious, how does the funding work for the chaplains? I remember you mentioning volunteers. That's obviously an option. But what about for the people who are trying to do this maybe full time? What would that look like?
State of Texas has put billions of dollars in their budget to support this. And Louisiana and Missouri have also passed laws that will fund chaplains. People always go, oh, there's not enough money, but there's specific money that's dedicated for this, and chaplains can serve lots of different roles. I mean, the school could even have a janitor, and he could also be certified as a chaplain. So there's lots of ways that chaplains can come into school, be on the payroll, and be honored as a person on staff.
Beautiful.
I love it. So give us some information. How do people get in touch with you, Rocky? How do they follow your ministry, and how do they get to your website?
They could go to campuschaplains.org to go to our website, and then we have an academy that would open up the academy. There's a free course on there to explain exactly what the qualifications are, and in some cases, what would disqualify someone. And to your point earlier, Lance, is that veterans are our first outreach. Veteran Service Organization have requested they be the first go-to for every chaplain opportunity in the United States. And Lance, before we close, I just have to give you a huge shout out, because years ago when I heard your message on the 7 mountains, I was pastoring a fairly successful church in Latin America, and I gave it away. When I heard your message about the 7 mountains, and I saw the opportunity in education, if it was done the right way, because I saw people struggling of how to get through those citadels, keeping us out. And chaplain is the constitutional framework for that to happen in every single country. So, wow. Lance, even though you've never known me really, I've met you a few times off and on, but your message of the mountains put me on this track.
I did not know that, Rocky, but you're exactly the kind of guy we're looking for. Campuschaplains.org. Everybody should go there. Go there. And by the way, support this man. Support him financially. He's a ministry. He's not talking money, but he needs resources to be able to run this thing. We need to get behind him. Thank you again, my brother. Look forward to seeing you. Carl, what do you think? That was pretty, I was unexpected. I actually didn't know the story.
Yeah. I mean, he's still obviously part pirate because he stole my heart.
Part pirate, he stole your heart. There's a quotable quote. Well, we're going to have to follow up with him some more, because I think there's stories of these chaplains that will inspire people. I'm sure there's 130,000 schools, he said. So I don't think they got 130,000 chaplains in those positions yet. But we'll be back again tomorrow. Keep strong and know that God is in control of the universe. See you later.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate